All right, guys, so today I want to talk about what support and resistance is, areas of interest is, and supply and demand zones are. They all mean the same thing. Supply and demand, support and resistance, areas of interest. They all mean the same thing. These are the levels that the stock price has touched multiple times, whether it has been a rejection or it has been a bounce from these specific levels or these specific price points. So when you look at a chart, you should be able to identify where these levels are. Where has it rejected multiple times? Where has it bounced from multiple times? So first, as you can see, this chart here is going on a downtrend. This stock is also showing multiple bounce and rejection points. And this is how you identify these. First, you notice that the stock is creating higher lows and lower lows, higher lows and lower lows. And each point either has a bounce or a rejection point at them. So if you look over here, my cursor to the left, you can see that there was a rip to the upside, came back down, and it bounced off this price point. Went back up, came back down, bounced off of this price point. So it bounced and rejected multiple times. So there you can mark your line or you can mark your level. Now further down in time, you can see that the stock drops underneath that level or that zone, comes back up to test it and rejects it and continues back to the downside. And then you can see once again that it comes up, goes back to that zone, and it rejects that zone one more time and creates a new low going back to the downside. That price point there where the line is at is also a psychological level of the price, $110. Depending on the stock, psychological levels can be running in 10s, 20s, 5s. Those are all psychological levels. So if this is 110, the next psychological level is 115, then it's 120, then it's 125. Those are all psychological levels. So here to the left, we get a 1, 2, 3 test bounce off of the psychological level of 110. And once we break under 110, we come back and we test one time, we test two times, and reject the price of 110 psychological level twice, and we come back down. Now let's go further. Here we get this drop, we come back up, reject, come back up, reject, come back up, reject. So that is a psychological level that we want to look for, because there are 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 rejections off of that zone. So you can mark another line there. It is also a psychological level of 9250. And as you can see, we have rejections here at the top of 9250. We drop down and we catch a bounce here, a bounce here, and a bounce here. We can mark our zones there, and that is a price point of $80. That is also a psychological level. So as you can see, there's like patterns to this. Rejections at 92.50 and bounces off of $80. So we are creating a channel trading sideways on this specific stock. And if you go back in time, you can see that here is another bounce at that $80 zone with a massive rip to the upside. So when the stock starts coming back down and it starts getting near that $80 zone, you can expect some buyers to come in and make the stock bounce. Comes back down to that zone, buyers come in, gets that bounce, and so forth, until it either breaks the zone to the upside or it breaks the zone to the downside, like how it's doing now. All right, guys, so one thing I need to remind you is that these zones are found in the bigger time frames. I like to use a 1 hour, 4 hour, and daily time frames to check those zones of interest, to check my supply and demand zones, to check my support and resistance zones. They all mean the same thing. As long as the price point has touched that specific area multiple times, I'm looking for at least 2 to 3 touches in order for me to have my zone marked up as an area of interest, or a supply and demand zone, or a support and resistance zone. So look for the bigger time frames. I like to use the 1 hour, the 4 hour, the daily, and possibly the weekly, but mainly the 1 hour, 4 hour, and the daily time frames to find these zones. I hope this helps you, and let's get to trading, man. Let's make some money. Let's go.